Well, today we have on Mr. Casey Burcham. He's a government teacher at Carroll County High School. Sir, how are you?
I'm good. I hope you guys are as well.
Yeah, we're doing good. Well, I think I can speak for both me and Ethan. It's an honor to talk with you today.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
We always start off the same way.
Okay.
Where did you grow up?
Grew up here. Grew up in Piper's Gap, Carroll County. In the winter of 1982 is when I came along. So, been here all my life, I guess, really.
And what did your parents do for work?
My dad, he was a supervisor of a furniture plant. My mom, she done a couple things. She worked in worked at Haynes when Haynes was still here in Galax, and then when that shut down, she went back to school, got her 2-year degree, I believe. I hope I'm saying that right. She'll be mad at me if I don't. And then she now works for the town of Hillsville. She's been over there for about 20 years.
Was that through Whitfield?
Yeah, I went through Whitfield, the company that she used to work for. You know, they were shutting the doors, and they offered to pay for it, and she's like, well. And I think, if I remember correctly, she graduated college the same year I graduated high school, you know, within a month of one. It was kind of a race there for a little while. But yeah, and she's still working. My dad, he passed away about 6 years ago. He battled cancer for on and off for about 10 years. And so, yeah, but he had somewhat retired by the time that happened. So at least he had a few good years there before things went downhill for him. But yeah. Yeah, that's what they did.
And what does she do for the town of Hillsville?
She's secretary. She works there. If you need anything for the flea market or a check being signed from the town of Hillsville, or she's told me a couple of times what she does. I'm thinking that's the majority of it. Write any bill they got to pay. I'm sure they like seeing her because she's got to sign the checks. But yeah, that's what she kind of does.
What elementary school did you go to?
I went to Oakland. I was a Panther there, K through 5. So. That was a few days ago. Good Lord, it's been a long time since. But yeah, I grew up there, went there, enjoyed it there, I think, yeah.
Did you play sports when you were at elementary school?
Yeah, that's kind of my deal. I've been involved in sports from what I can tell, probably 3rd grade maybe. Played football, basketball, baseball, done that through middle school. I was lucky enough to make it when you got to intermediate school. When I came through Carroll, you was at Woodlawn for 6th and 7th grade, so you still done Little League or whatever. Yeah. And then when you went to the middle school, it was 8th and 9th then. So played middle school ball there. Then when we got here, played football, basketball, played baseball. You know, if it had a ball in it, I wanted to compete with it. So.
Did you run any?
No track. No, it wasn't my thing. I figured, you know, I don't see the point in that one. You got to run for long ways. I wasn't a big fan of that one. Yeah.
Was there any educators in school that really affected you?
High school was probably coaches more so than educators. Yeah. If we're being completely honest about it, I was more interested in competing than I was school, you know. But no, I had a few coaches. Coach Hale, he was a football coach here when I came through. Probably learned more from him than I would like to admit, I guess. He was a on your case type coach, but he was a very organized coach, and everything had a meaning to it. And at the end of the day, you know, you don't realize it when you're 17, 18 years old. You're like, man, he's on my case all the time. But, you know, he looking back on it now, I really appreciate him because of how hard he pushed us because he got out of us what I don't think anybody else would have. And then played for Coach Tompkins. He just recently retired from the middle school. In baseball, and that's my passion is baseball. I love that, and you know I took things from him, and you know the coaches here, you know, if not for them, I probably wouldn't have got to do what I did after high school. You know, but Coach Meredith, I can't leave him out. He coaches everywhere now. I think he's coaching baseball at Fort Chiswell these days, but he was here, and even though he didn't actually coach me, I always kind of played above what he was coaching, I guess. To this day, I talk to him 3 or 4 times a week, just about in general, you know, just anything. So, yeah, I mean, probably more so coaches because I imagine a lot of teachers I have was like, I just wish he'd do something, you know, because I've done enough to stay eligible, you know. Yeah. So, but yeah.
Did you work any in high school?
I did. I worked, well, back in then where I guess Contenders is now. Okay. There was a Lowe's Food in there.
Really?
So I worked up there for a while, and during the summer, when I come back from college during the summer, my mom would always get me a job with whatever construction crew was working for the town of Hillsville. And I hated that. I'll be completely honest with you because they'd work you like a dog, you know. Yeah. My mom said, well, always make you enjoy your education. And I couldn't agree with her because I could not wait to go back when those jobs was over. But, you know, yeah, they instilled that, you know, you're going to work for what you get. And, you know, looking back on it now, it was obviously good for me because it probably kept me out of trouble.
Yeah.
But, yeah, we worked some. But if my parents were also cool enough to know if I was going to play 3 sports that, you know, you got to have time to do that too. Right. So I would say my work during seasons was not very much. But during the summer, it was hard as you could go.
Right.
Yeah.
When did you decide that baseball wanted to be your main focus?
Oh, well, it probably took me until my second year, well, I guess technically my third year of college. When I left here, I went to Radford University to play baseball. And when I got there, I learned everything that I didn't need to be doing as a college student, you know. So I ended up transferring from Radford to Emory and Henry and got down there. Ended up playing 4 years of baseball, but also went down there and played a couple years of football because in high school, like I said earlier, I played 3 sports. And got to Emory, and it was one of those situations where I hadn't played football, but I was like, you know, I think I could still pick it up. And so I tried, and it worked out. You know, I played a couple years. I wasn't a starter or anything. I was a backup quarterback for a kid that was way better than me. I mean, they got it right. And ended up getting hurt my shoulder pretty good my second year down there. And once that happened, I realized that maybe this isn't exactly what I need to be doing. So ended up playing 4 years of baseball there, and then after that, well, if I back up a little bit, by the time I needed to declare a major, I had a history advisor, which that was just coincidental. Well, he just happened to be a history professor. Right. And, you know, I sat down with him in his office, and he's like, well, what do you want to do, you know, like as far as getting your education? I said, well, I'm going to play baseball, you know. He's like, well, let's just, in case that doesn't work out, which he obviously knew, you know. And I was like, I don't really know. I said, well, he said, would you enjoy coaching? And I was like, well, yeah. I think I could, you know, I'd want to coach. And he's like, well, you got to find something in education. And I was like, well, I guess we can do that. So he starts rambling off, you know, do you like math? I do not. Science, I'm not good at it, you know. English, yeah, I have a hard enough time speaking as this. So he gets to history, and I'm like, you know, I guess it's all right. And he said, well, look at it like this. He said, history, once you learn it, will never change.
Yeah, that's true.
And in my brain, back then, I was like, well, once I got it, I got it. I said, let's do that. So I ended up getting my degree in history and, you know, a couple of, you know, political sciences, things of that nature, and concentrated in secondary education, so teaching 6 through 12. So I guess, you know, when that happened, it was kind of like, well, at least I've got something to fall back on, which I'm very thankful for because the whole baseball scenario didn't work out. But, yeah, now, you know, I'm here coaching and teaching, and I really enjoy it.
So you pitched at Emory and Henry?
I did. I pitched some. I played in the outfield some, played first base some. I had a good career down there. After my 4 years was done there, I had an invite with the Philadelphia Phillies. And I had an invite with the Washington Nationals, but that's just kind of what it was. It didn't really pan out to anything, you know. Really wish I had took it more serious, you know, but who knows what would have happened. I always tell my kids when I introduce myself at the beginning of the year about that, you know, went to Emory and had this opportunity. I said, but if it had worked out, you guys wouldn't know who I am because I'd still be somewhere in some small town in America trying to figure out how to make it to the big leagues. But I think it worked out for the best for me, you know, because I really enjoy what I'm doing now. So,
and a student of, not yours, but you coached him a few years ago, told me that you're actually in the Hall of Fame at Emory and Henry.
Yeah, they put me in that in 2019, I believe. Like I said, I had a lot of good teammates at Emory, and I got to see a lot of fastballs because of a lot of the teammates I had, so they made me look really good. And at the end of my career, my numbers, you know, baseball's a statistical game. You know, everybody looks at your numbers, and they were okay, you know, and I guess they thought it was good enough to do that. But yeah.
Can you talk
Sounds
about
good to me.
Can you talk about playing for a high school team versus a college team?
I think high school, you look at it as for the love of it. And what I mean by that is you're going to have kids out there that, from a baseball standpoint, you're going to have kids come try out that, you know, they're out there because their buddy's trying out, or they're out there because they think they like it, and they're just out there to have a good time. You know, and kids play in high school because their buddies are doing it and they think it's fun, and you know, and for the most part, you know, they got an idea. You know, we're blessed here baseball wise. We normally do pretty well. the kids we have on this year's team are, they're talented. They're goof-offs. They can be just complete, goofballs, I guess you'd say. But they also understand when it's time to be serious. But from a high school standpoint, I think it's for, well, my buddy's doing it, so I want to do it. And when you get into college, these guys are there because, somebody wanted them to show up. Somebody talked them into, okay, this may be a good idea. And it's not so, they still love the game, but I looked at it when I got there more as it became a job, and the organization of it was a lot different. When you're in high school, you practice for 2 hours a day, you go play a game, you go home. In college, you wake up, you go to class, you go to practice, you go to study hall, you go back and watch film. It's a job. And but I really like that. That's always been my thing, even with football and baseball. I think if you were to ask someone about me, what they think of me as a coach, I would like to think they would say I'm organized and well prepared. You can notice I got binders here. Every team we play, I got a binder on, and usually I try to keep a couple years worth of their statistics in it, so I know, kind of know my opponent type situation.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, from high school to college, the game's a little faster in college because you got people that, they should have an idea what they're doing. Yeah. But, it's hard to beat a high school atmosphere, especially like football. Football Friday night's pretty cool, because those kids are out there because they want to be there, and then they love it. And, you want to prepare for them to see them do well. So I would think that's the biggest difference.
Did you use wooden or metal bats in college?
I'm not that old. Yeah, we use metal.
Okay.
We got to use metal.
I don't know.
We actually got to use the good metal bats. These kids that get to play now, their bats stink. The BB cores. They took it out of them, so to speak, because they thought the game was getting dangerous. But I always give them a hard time. We had to move the fence in because we, done some renovations to the field. They put the lights on it, and I said the real reason we moved the fence in because none of you guys are strong enough to hit it out. Jokingly, of course. But the bats they have to use now, I would not like. We got to use good bats, and I guess they weren't worried about our safety and health back in the day. But the bats now, I'm not a big fan of them. I don't think you'd find many kids or coaches, for that matter, that like them. But it is what it is.
So Emory was a D3 school?
It was at that point in time. Yeah, when I got there, we played D3 schedule. We played in the Old Dominion Athletic Conference. I can't remember. Hampton-Sydney was in it. Bridgewater was in it. Now they've blown up down there now. They got buildings everywhere, and I think they're Division II. But back then, people at Emory for the most part were there. One, if they got recruited, but two, it was, they thought they could play after high school.
Right.
And so
Were you on scholarship for Emory?
Well, technically not a scholarship. They did give me money, but it was through a grant and aid scenario where they were Division III, they can't actually give scholarships.
Yeah.
And as I mentioned before, my grades in high school were enough to be eligible to play whatever was coming up that season. But they did help me out some, yeah.
Did you go to college just to play baseball? Was that the entire reason?
Yeah, well, originally when I went to Radford,
Yeah.
they're a small Division I school.
Yeah.
And when I was in high school, my way of thinking was, well, they're Division I. If I can play there, I can play anywhere.
Yeah.
And coming from a small town like here, and Radford's not that big, but it's a lot different than here, I guess I would say. So when I got down there, that whole freedom that you gain being an 18-year-old kid, I took a great advantage of it. And from a grade standpoint, I was doing okay, but the baseball, I wasn't ready for the amount of work that it was going to take, because like I was telling you earlier, study halls, practices, film sessions, your entire day was planned for you.
Right.
And then it took me a while to figure out that I needed to be taking some of those things seriously. And then when I figured it out, it was a little too late for me there. And I don't blame anybody but myself for the way that fell out at Radford, but once I transferred to Emory, it's like I found where I needed to be. They were doing the same things, but I think when I got there, I already understood it. And once I understood kind of going into it, these are the things I have to do, it made the transition a lot better. And, of course, me being a year older helped too. You mature. And I needed that. I'm not ashamed to say that. I don't mind telling kids, I messed up my first time in college, but it made me a better. I don't necessarily want to say better human, but it made me better at knowing things I need to do, and making my time more. How do I put this? More
Organized.
I guess, more organized for me to get things done I need to do during the day.
Yeah.
So, I don't regret going to Radford at all. I mean, getting to play there for what little time I did was, as a blessing, obviously. And then getting to play in Emory was a blessing as well. But, I wouldn't trade what happened for nothing. I really enjoyed my time when I got to Emory.
Did you consider playing basketball at Emory?
Oh, no. Watching some of those dudes play. I wouldn't know what I was going to play at them. I went to a lot of games, but I never decided to do basketball. I was more interested in hanging out with Coach McCall, baseball guy, just kind of picking his brain on, how do you do this? How would you do that?
Yeah,
that was my thing.
Was Kevin Edwards up there at the time playing?
Kevin's a little older than me. Kevin and I are actually fraternity brothers, believe it or not.
Okay.
Yeah, but he's a little older than me. He was on the football team. I should know when he left, but I don't. But yeah, he went through Emory, and I was around him a little bit with fraternity stuff. And his daughter, she's killing it at Galax. She's state champion times like 7 already.
Yeah.
So.
He's married to my cousin Brooks.
Okay. Yeah, Kevin's a good dude.
So more the academic side of it.
All right.
Once you started to go into the history program and teaching, were you interested in it?
With the history, not so much, to be honest with you, because like I was telling you, the advisor said, once you got it, you kind of you got it, And a lot of those classes I felt like were repeaters. They would just add something else to it. But I got into believe it or not, I like to read. I know a lot of people look at me like, "Oh, you're a coach," this and that, but I'm a pretty avid reader. Yeah. And my thing is I like reading about people, coaches, historical figures, things of that nature. So when we got into studying certain individuals from history, that was kind of my thing. But then the teaching side of it, what really helped me with it was I actually had to go back for my 5th year to finish because I had to do my student teaching. But I also had a year eligibility left. So it was kind of like, well, I can teach at a neighboring high school when I still get to play ball. So this is awesome. I'm basically got a job. I'm going to go play ball at the end. And once I got into the classroom and got to, get to relate with kids y'all's age, that was a lot of fun for me because you guys know what you know. You don't know what you don't know type situation. If I can influence that, that's a pretty neat deal to me. Yeah. And, with the student teaching that I went through, we had to deal with elementary school kids, which was fine. But, most of those days was opening milk cartons and tying shoes. There wasn't really a lot of teaching going on to that. Yeah. And then actually done sociology and taught government, believe it or not, when I done my student teaching and got to deal with kids there. And that was a good deal. I enjoyed that quite a lot.
Me and Ethan are both big readers too. Have you read any of David McCullough? He wrote John Adams.
I don't think so.
You should check him out. He's one of my favorites. He's really good. So.
Well, I say I'm an avid reader, and I say that, and I've probably read 3 books in the last year, but it's more so become these. I listen to a lot more podcasts now than I do anything
They're getting pretty popular.
Yeah, they're a lot of fun.
And we're hoping to ride the wave.
There you go. Yeah. It sounds like you're doing pretty good with it.
Well, thank you.
Thanks. But yeah, so you graduate college and you kind of go back for your 5th year and you do your student teaching. Where do you end up after that?
So I had, you go to job fairs, you do all that good stuff because that was part of the whole criteria to graduate. Yeah. So I probably had resumes and applications into 30 different high schools, from, in our area to parts of North Carolina to parts of Tennessee. And ended up going to a couple interviews in places. Things didn't work out. And then we had a job come open. I'm going to show my age now. It was when Woodlawn was still a school. They had a alternative education job open. Okay. And basically it was for students who, not necessarily troublemakers, they just had a hard time being in a general education classroom like what we have now. Yeah. Probably the ones like you guys sit in. Maybe they just need it quieter, or maybe they just need to be in a small group or whatever. So they had a job opening for that, so I applied for it. Just so happened we needed a football coach and a baseball coach, and I knew the principal at the time, so they called me and asked me if I'd be interested in interviewing for it. I did. So I taught that for, I think 3 years at Woodlawn, and then once those 3 years was 3 years was up, you probably don't know this guy, but a guy by the name of Adam Joyce was a civics and economics teacher at Woodlawn.
Okay.
And he got a principal job actually here at the high school. And obviously my degree was in history. So they were like, do you want to apply for the 7th grade civics job? And I was like, sure, So I kind of fell into that, taught that for, I've been here 10, so that would be probably 5 or 6. I made the transition, once they closed Woodlawn, I made the transition to the middle school with the 7th grade for 1 year, taught civics and economics there. And then got the government job here in 2014, I believe it was. So this is year 10.
And you started the same year as Miss Mitchell here.
Yeah, this is both of our 18th years. Yeah, but she, funny story, she actually got a government job here that I didn't when we was coming out of college, which they made a good choice. Don't get me wrong. She does great. But yeah, so yeah, this is our 18th. We graduated high school together, the whole deal.
Yeah, exciting.
Can you talk about the importance of teaching civics in today's
Yes, from my point of view, and I'm biased obviously, but I think there's certain things in this class, from government, civics, everything you want to look at it, that are more vital to individuals than what you're going to get in maybe a math class and I'm not knocking any of them, don't get me wrong, they're all important. But your responsibility to vote, your responsibility to have a voice, in my opinion, you need to be educated or informed about things going on in your community, not just at a local level, but a state and national level. Because I think the leaders of this country, it's our obligation to know what they're doing. And if we don't know what they're doing and we're voting blindly for these people, you get put in situations that, maybe could have been avoided, So, yeah, I think it's very vital what they're trying to get in here. So when we talk about voting, I make a big deal out of voting, even though it's, voluntary situation. I always tell the kids, if you're going to complain about them, go vote. That way you have a reason to complain, But things like that, I think citizenship's important. They need to understand how people need to go through that. I think understanding what the local and the state and the national government structure is important, because at the end of the day, there's a ton of jobs within the government that people just simply don't know about because they're uneducated about them. So, I think a lot of the things we talk about in here is very vital, to society, Maybe not so as much important as math or science or things of that nature, but, a lot of things in here you're going to carry with you that you need to know about.
Right.
So.
Yeah, my 7th grade civics class has been one of the most useful classes I've ever taken.
Yeah, you remember who you had?
I had Miss Marshall.
Okay.
At the
Now
middle school.
funny thing, she took my job when I came over
Okay,
here. It's
really?
a funny circle, yeah.
I believe she's left. She
I
had
think
a
so.
baby a few years ago. I had her that year of COVID, so
Oh,
I had her for half a quarter, and then
And she's gone.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it was a mess, and so I didn't get a full civics education. That's something I regret, and that's something
Right.
I hope I'll fill in some things when I take government next year. But
Well, I compare government in high school to civics from a standpoint that in civics they give you the broad overview of the government.
yeah,
In Virginia and U.S. history or U.S. government, you get the detailed version of it.
Yeah.
Is the way I look at it.
yeah, that makes sense.
Do you think kids are more interested in government now or less interested than when you
So I'm mixed on that. I think when you're 17, 18 years old, and I'm not speaking for all of them, I think the majority, kids just simply, it doesn't affect them as much at the age that they are, so they don't really worry about it. Like in here, we try to register everybody that's able to register to vote before they leave here.
Yeah.
Well, I got kids all the time saying, well, I'm not going to do that. I'm like, well, regardless if you do it or not, you need to have the opportunity. You need to do it. It's not going to cost you anything to do this. So, I think the older you get, the more important these things are to you. Because I can remember sitting in Gene Hawk, Mr. Hawks, I see him quite a bit at the Wellness Center. He was a government teacher here. And his big thing was current events and know what, you needed to know what was going on. Because like what I was saying earlier, if you're going to complain about it, you better have, be informed about it.
Yeah.
And I think the older you get, the more involved you are. It's very rare from what I've gathered in 10 years I've been doing government that kids 16 to I would almost say 20 actually worry about what's going on in politics. Now you do get, don't get me wrong, there are a few that are very gung-ho and want to know, and they pick a side, whether it be Republican or Democrat, and they're trying to learn as much as they can. But those kids are the ones that's usually trying to find a career in it, whether it be politics or teaching or whatever it may be. So I think for the most part, most kids that I've dealt with, they're kind of on that. Well, okay, I'll act like I care when I'm around Burcham, but maybe not so much when I'm on, outside of school.
Do you see an increase in interest during election years like this year?
I think kids are more involved in election years. I think it's easier to teach about how things work during election years because there's just so much more information out there. Obviously, since 2016, when former President Trump was elected, he kind of threw a wrench in how you teach things, because usually you could be like, well, if you want to become the president, it would be good to be a senator. It would be good to hold state office. It would be good, to kind of work your way up. And obviously he gets it without no political experience, and kids look at that and like, well, he made it. Why can't I? I'm like, well, you're not wrong, but this may be be an easier way if you want to get into it. But election years are a lot simpler because I can show them in black and white. This is how this works, and this is what just happened. So that's good. But
yeah, absolutely. You mentioned Gene Hawks. I had him as a principal at Gladesboro. Yeah. And I didn't realize he was a history teacher. Mm-hmm. And you had him? I
had him. I'm going to tell his age now, mine too. But I was a senior in 2000. I graduated in June of 2001. Mm-hmm. And he was a government Virginian, just literally what I'm doing, same concept. So, and he'd done that for a while at that point. Sorry, Mr. Hawks, if you ever hear this. I enjoyed his class. I wouldn't have, like I said, I wasn't the greatest student by any stretch, but I did enjoy learning about the concepts, how things work from a governmental standpoint.
Have you thought about bringing in speakers to your class?
Yeah, we actually had a really good one up until. It's been a few years since he's done it, but Mr. Thompson, believe it or not, we do a section on the judicial branch, how the Supreme Court works, structure, and then we get into case studies of, landmark Supreme Court cases, Roe versus Wade, Brown versus Board of Education, Texas versus Johnson, the burning of the flag, things of that, like that. And he come in and he usually, he can really nail home the whole First Amendment and how it can be violated, but you're looking at it from a completely different view. It really gains their attention. I need to talk to him about doing it again. So he used to come in. We have the registrar that usually comes in with the voting process. I didn't get to do it this year because I think there was a change in command over there, and whoever took it over is working on trying not to be so far behind. So we didn't get to do it this time, but we normally bring those in. And I think that's about it. Now, the last couple of years, because you mentioned COVID earlier, you guys have to do the whole CPR training situation, and they've used our classes to have those people come in. Mm-hmm. But I think that'll change after this year because y'all were kind of the last class with the COVID. Yeah. So
I did that in my 9th grade PE class.
Yeah, that's normally how they do it, but I think whenever COVID happened, there was a bunch of kids that didn't get it, and it's a graduation requirement. Right. Yeah. So they're like, can we do that with y'all? I'm like, yeah. I mean, you might as well bring them in because that's obviously important too. So.
Because I did it just a few months ago in here. So.
Yeah. Can you talk about the state requires a 10-hour community service project for every graduating senior. Can you talk about the value and importance of community service for a person?
Absolutely. Well, so from my standpoint with it, that's like the second or third thing we talk about the first day of class. Because, you're in here 90 days, or in the hopes of 90 days. It usually never ends up to being 90. But we talk about it after I introduce myself in the syllabus because, in my opinion, I want kids to look at community service as something that's fun. I don't, when you say community service to all these kids, one, they think it's like either court ordered or, well, I'm not getting paid for this, so why is it beneficial? And the reason I do it is because, one, I want to find something that they enjoy. We've had kids do community service in here, like, for example, with a couple of vets around the area, and they actually found jobs while doing the community service because it's just something they were passionate about. Mm-hmm. And that's why I tell them, I said, guys, it don't matter how you help as long as you're willing to help, for one, and you find something that you enjoy doing. And if you enjoy, making scarves for people, do it. If you like making the soup bowls at what's the place in Galax?
God's Storehouse.
Yeah, but there's another one. It's an art place on Main Street. Chestnut Creek. Yeah, I was like, if that's something, go do it because it's art, And for the most part, the kids, they jump into it. Like I have never had a student where I felt like I needed to tell them they failed that because of them trying to do something. Now, we've had some where like, oh, I'll just mow somebody's yard. Well, that's fine if you enjoy mowing a yard, but there's so many other opportunities, especially here. We're such a small, local, small area. There's always people needing help.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of the kids that we have take it very seriously. They look at it, like you said, it is a requirement. And the way we count it as a grade, it's kind of a big chunk of the grade that they get. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, I'd say 9 out of 10 kids really find something that they would probably do even if I hadn't asked them to do it. So that's good. I enjoy that part of it, them getting to find something they like.
And you can't use court ordered.
No, if you didn't get court ordered, you got to add my 10 to it. We're not going to let them get off on that.
Because I've heard people have done that.
Oh, I'm sure.
Got the judge to sign off on it, and they can't take it.
Right.
So.
We would not. No, I'm not trying to speak for Mr. Montgomery, but I think I know him well enough. I do not think he would take it either. Yeah.
Can you talk about a difference in student behavior from before COVID and after COVID?
Oh.
Positive and negative.
I got you. Well, from a negative standpoint on it, I think a lot of kids, and I don't really know the correct word for it, but I feel like entitled, will come up simply because when COVID happened, not only did school systems suffer, I think a lot of people in situations where they had to make a decision struggled with it because, how do you make the kid that lives, in Laurel Fork that don't have the internet?
Yeah.
How are you going to make them turn in an assignment? Yeah. Or how are you going to treat them the same as a kid that lives right here next to high school that has internet, So from a negative side of it, I would look at it as kids figured out a way to not have to do anything. And I still think there's a little bit of that going on now. I think kids use it as a crutch. But from a positive side of things, and just speaking for me, I have learned so much more about how to teach virtually, so to speak. Like even today, every assignment I give, we do it on Google Classroom. If you'd asked me what Google Classroom was prior to COVID, I'd have looked at you and been like, I have no idea. And I should have, but I just, paper, pencil, you're going to listen to me talk, get down what you think you need to know, and then we'll go from there, right? But, that has changed, which is, created some positive and negative. I have to test now, not on the computer, because everybody and their brother knows how to look up whatever the answers are. That was a learning curve for me. Learned that the hard way first year, But I think now kids are more technological. I could probably ask any kid in my class how to do this on a phone, even though we're not supposed to have them in class. But, when you can have them, hey, how do I do this? And I bet every one of them can tell me. So I do think that was probably a positive thing from COVID. But, yeah, just the lack of people knowing what to do, and it's no one's fault. I mean, you have a pandemic,
right,
you're more worried about staying healthy than you are learning something. And, that probably hurt the younger group more so. Like my daughter, she's 11, or will be 11 in April, and I've noticed with her things that she probably would have already picked up on are a little bit more difficult for her now, simply because she went in class. Right. And she's trying to learn it off a YouTube video or, a teacher recording something and her trying to listen to it. And as well as I do, if I recorded a video and sent it to you guys, if you had questions, it's hard to ask the guy that pre-recorded it what it is, know. And, I've done the same thing because, we were all like, well, we got to do something. So let's figure out how to do something.
So
but
she was 7 when the pandemic.
I think so, yeah. She would have been in I think it's first or second grade.
That's a pretty crucial time.
Yeah, so she's learning tire shoes, ABC, addition, and I wouldn't say she struggled with it, but there has been nights of us doing homework where I'm like, honey, you should already know this, but it's not her fault.
Yeah.
And but we're getting there, and I'm sure she's not the only one. So I worry more so about that group than I do you guys, because by the time it happened with you all, what were y'all, 7th?
Yeah,
I was
8th grade. Yeah. So you kind of had an idea, the basic knowledge was there anyway.
Right.
So
we could read.
yeah. So, but yeah, it obviously still has its challenges. I think we're going to have challenges from that for the next 10 years. I truly do. But from a positive aspect of it, I think teaching now has become more versatile. I think you have more options. And I think a lot of kids, you guys learn a way different way than I probably did coming through school. I didn't have a cell phone like my teacher literally would say, you're not ever going to have a calculator in your pocket. This is why you have to know it. Well, you guys literally have that, you know. And so, it's a unique way, but I do think there's more options now for education. and some good, some bad. But I think after it's with those options, kids really don't have an excuse anymore. You should be able to figure it out. You know?
So you think some aspects of online learning have been beneficial?
Yeah, I do. I think, well, you know, we as a teacher, you have to do so many classes every so often to keep your license.
Okay.
And a lot of the classes I take are virtual now. But prior to COVID, we actually went to a room. I sat with a professor. They talked to it, just like, you know, most what you guys do every day now. But now, you know, you get online, do this, look to research that. And, you know, I do think that is beneficial from a time standpoint. And a lot of people, you know, now learn that way because they know that way. That's what they had to do. They had to adapt to it. You know, my generation may not like that as much as what you guys do, but
Jobs too. I mean, people.
Yeah.
Young people are getting jobs.
it's insane the amount of jobs now. I can remember coming through high school, and it was a huge push. You talk to any teacher in the early 2000s, any guidance counselor in the early 2000s, it was, well, where are you going to college? It wasn't if, it was where, what do you, you know, it was, you got to have a degree to meet the demand in society, the jobs that were open. And now that's not necessarily the case. You know, trades are a big deal. The internet blew up, obviously. There's all kinds of jobs you can find on the internet. I mean, you guys probably make money doing this if you get big enough doing it, sponsorships and things of that nature. So, you know, I don't necessarily push college on kids. I look at them and try to figure out what they like and then try to direct them in a way that would be more beneficial because, you know, maybe I'm wrong, but I think spending $200,000 on a college education when you can get your certification and, you know, go into a trade or go into a business and, you know, not have to do that. Why do that, you know?
I know even at four-year schools, I was talking to people at Tech. Even in-person students are taking online classes at Tech.
Yeah, I've got a couple of kids I've taught there, and you know, I keep up. You know, I'm sure you guys remember Benji Gosnell. He's here. You know, he's playing football up there now, and I still communicate with him quite a bit. I don't think he's had a in-person class since he showed up there 2 years ago.
Really?
I think everything he's done was online.
It's wild.
Yeah.
Really.
It's kind of crazy to pay
Because I know some kids
$60,000.
graduated.
Yeah, and you don't really got to see anybody.
No.
Right?
Some kids graduated up there never really because COVID hit right
Yeah.
when they started. And maybe they already had their associate's grade. They never went on campus.
Yeah, they'd have
Without their
to.
degree.
Yeah.
No.
I read some meme one time. It was talking about kids during COVID graduating as doctors. And it's like, just remember, their last 4 semesters was online. So good luck choosing. I'm like, well, you know, when you say it that way, that's kind of scary. But, you know, it is what it is. And,
That's a good point.
yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at it from a historical standpoint, the whole overview of history, can everything progress into the last 30 years?
Yeah.
It's a crazy push, even the last 10 years.
Well,
Just how fast things change. It's easy to get caught up in current events and not really realize the importance of it or the significance of what's happening. In the span of human history, it's incredible.
well, I don't think, and I'm not trying to sound rude by any stretch, but your guys' age, how much things have changed just in the 17, 18 years you guys have been around. Because I can remember in high school, like, getting a cell phone is a big deal to you guys.
Yeah.
But when I was in high school, getting your driver's license was such a big deal. You're like, oh, this freedom. We had cell phones. They were coming around maybe my 10th, 11th grade year. But to show you how little we knew about them, I didn't even know it had to be on to receive a call. So I would drive around. My parents got me one because, you're in a vehicle. Obviously, they want to make sure you're good every once in a while. I just left it off. I was like, I don't. But I'd still, landline. We would make plans for the weekend at school. I wasn't going. There was no way to talk to people then.
Yeah, that's true.
And just getting your driver's license was such a big deal. And now I see kids coming in, present day, and they're, Coach Motley or Coach Nestor's like, hey, we're going to start your driving. All right.
Yeah.
I'm like, what do you mean? All right? Like, I'm wanting to get in that car right now. I got to figure out how to get that.
Some kids don't even want that.
Yeah, could care less. And it's just, I don't think it's good, or I'm not saying it's good or bad. It's just how things have changed. Just, I'm 41 now. Just in, the 20 or so years of my career, education has changed so much.
Yeah.
It's so wild.
There's a video, I think, from '94 where Al Roker said, "What's the internet?"
Yeah.
That's only 12 years before we were born.
Right.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's
And one kid, like, you guys have never had a time where you've not had access to a cell phone. You've not had access to internet. you know, I've got a stepson. He's 19 years old. He's a huge gamer. You know, he loves playing these online games, and you know, he can play with anybody anywhere.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there trying to figure out how to turn the console on. And, you know, back when I was, they just hit a power button, and now you do it. I mean, it's just things are so much different from
We've
my
got to
age.
interview people from. We've done a lot of Zoom interviews.
Yeah.
We interviewed
People in
Congressman
Florida.
Morgan Griffith when he was up in D.C.
That's awesome.
He was about to go to a
Hearing.
a hearing. We got to do it here because we got to do it.
Right.
It was in his house.
Yeah.
He was in D.C. in
That's
his
stupid.
office. So just being able to talk to people too. I mean,
Yeah.
communicate anybody in the
We've
world.
interviewed several people in Florida, and
Right.
you know, otherwise, I'm not driving to Florida, you know?
Exactly. And that's another thing, like, I think the technological world, so to speak, has hindered the youth because, you know, I think a lot, like what we're doing now, talking face to face, a lot of kids do not like that.
Yeah, it's kind of rare.
You know, I walk in, I'm not trying to make, you know, jokes about any of my classes, but my first block, every single morning I walk in. Good morning, guys. You have a good, and every one of them, but one, I'll have one kid always ask, good morning, coach, how you doing? But the rest of them, never say a word. Like it's like pulling teeth to get them to speak to you. And it's not that they're trying to be rude or not polite. It's just that's just how they've always been. They learn to talk to people with their thumbs. In my second block, most of those kids want to say something, you know. But third block, I got 5 or 6 they'll, you know, interact with me. But then it's like I said, you got to pull it out of them, you know. And I do think that may be a little bit of a hindrance because I'm like, well, kids just don't want to talk to you anymore, you know. And, but I'm glad you guys are at least you want to.
We're trying to bring it back.
There it is, yeah.
That's
We see the
actually
value in
how we started the podcast. Really.
Yeah.
Just there's a lack of that long form conversation.
Yeah.
It's hard to find people to talk to.
Right, because my question with it is, one of these days you're going to have to sit down in a room or a Zoom, whatever it may be, with a potential employer, or maybe you're hiring someone.
Right.
And, you know, that impression is a big deal. And, you know, I'm looking at some of these kids, I'm like, Lord, you know, you got to learn to at least say hi. You know, hey, you know, it's scary. But
Yeah, well, just, you know, it seems like today your conversation is just very short.
yeah, very to the point.
Very snippy. We want to sit down and talk to people for an hour or two.
Yeah,
Because you can learn a lot that way.
exactly.
Get to know somebody. And that's something that me and Ethan were missing because we've been talking for years. We decided to finally just kind of
Record it.
record it.
Yeah, why not, right?
And, and people want to be talked to.
Yeah.
They want to have these conversations. That just brings me to my next question. You were in high school.
Uh-huh.
You went here.
Yeah, graduated in 2001.
What is the interactions between students here now different from your high school experience?
Shoot, man. It's how do you put it? Well, like I said, growing up with us, it was obviously it's a different world for one.
Yeah.
Though, you know, society is so much different. I mean, it's just 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But you made a lot of connections in school. You know, you made plans in school. If you want to do something, you would tell your parents, hey, so-and-so wants to have a sleepover, and my parent would call their parent on the landline and figure it out, you know. But now it's just like you got the Life 360. Hey, I'm going here, and they can check on you if you want to, which we did not have, you know. So interaction in my day, and of course I'm biased because, you know, I grew up in those days. I feel like a lot of the people that I grew up with, we don't have as difficult a time having a conversation as what, I don't want to say all of your generation, but I would say the majority of them. You know, there's not a lot of kids that could do what you guys are doing right now. They would become uncomfortable for them having this long, especially like with an adult.
Yeah.
You know, so that would be it. The interaction is a lot different now. But on the same token, I think there is more interaction going on in your generation than what there was in mine. Because you're not going to, I'm not just going to go sit down with someone and have a conversation with them at that age. But you guys can have group snaps or text or whatever how it is. And you may get to know just another senior through the group text you guys have figuring things out, you know. So, like I said, from a face-to-face standpoint, I think cell phones hindered that. But I don't necessarily think cell phones are bad. I think they are a way to connect. And, you know, maybe some people don't like the whole face-to-face thing, which is fine. But at least they have a way or a means of communicating with other people.
Absolutely.
My next question is kind of similar. You're a parent yourself.
Yeah.
How has being a parent changed how you interact with your students and vice versa?
I think being a parent is being the most hypocritical person in the world. I truly believe that with all my heart. I tell my wife that all the time because I yell at Landon, or did yell at Landon. He's 20 years old now. He could probably hurt me. But, I get on to him, and then my 11 or soon-to-be 11-year-old, get on them for the same things I was probably doing, probably getting yelled at for the same thing. But, I think from a parental standpoint, and I try this, I say being hypocritical jokingly, I think if Landon ever wants to have a serious conversation with me, I'm honest with him. I try to tell him things that, when me growing up, this is where I messed up, and this happened because I was not making good decisions or vice versa or whatever, simply because I want him not to make those decisions. Now, with my 10-year-old, she's built just like me, unfortunately. She's strong-headed, and she's as competitive as she can be. And I feel like when she gets older, we're probably going to have a lot more issues because, I dread the day she dates. I mean, typical, father-daughter situation. But, I think from a parental standpoint, you got to be honest with them. And I try to do that in here. From a teaching standpoint, I try to make sure these kids understand where they are with things from a grade, grading things and that nature. And with government in general, it can be a hot topic.
Yeah.
If you want it to be, we do some things in here, and to be honest, I try to give them topics that are a little controversial, simply because I want them to be able to communicate with their classmates in a way that, we may disagree, but we don't have to dislike one another because we disagree.
Right.
And that we've had that a couple of times in here, which is fine. Like I said, I'm not wanting them to argue or think, but I want them to be able to express their viewpoint on something. And if someone doesn't like it, that's okay. Mm-hmm. But just as long as you're being honest with them, I feel like that's the only way you can be. As long as people understand where you're coming from and where you stand on it, they may not like it, but I think they have to respect it. And I'm I'm big on that. Like, you may not like what I'm about to tell you, but I'm telling you this because this is what you need to hear. Yeah. And I want to say Landon would tell you that too. I'd want to say my daughter would tell you that. I would hope to say everybody that you would talk to, like, well, he's an honest guy. Mm-hmm. He, whether we disagree or not, he's honest about it. And that, hopefully that comes out in my teaching. Yeah.
This question is similar to the previous one. How has coaching changed how you teach?
Vice
versa as well.
So how do you put this? I would think coaching. I think if you were to talk to kids that I've coached, I would obviously want them to think that I cared. Mm-hmm. I would think a lot of them would tell you I come across as mad all the time. Mm-hmm. And it's not necessarily that I'm mad, it's that I'm trying to think. You may be thinking about what's happening now, and I'm trying to figure out, okay, 3 plays from now, or this, that, or, I'm trying to think ahead and maybe not necessarily worried about what you're dealing with right now. Mm-hmm. I've had kids in the past probably dislike the honesty that I've gave them, if that makes any sense. But I'm going to be truthful to you. I mean, sometimes coaching, it's a very rewarding profession. I truly believe that. I think that at the end of the day, the ultimate goal is to have success, and I think success is measured differently for different people. Mm-hmm. I try to make my goal is, I tell the kids all the time, I'm not necessarily worried about a district championship or a region championship or maybe even a state championship. I'm worried about getting better today. Yeah. And if we get better today, maybe that'll lead to one of those long-term goals. But, at the end of the day, I want them to think back on me, well, he was a competitive dude. I want them to think that he had knowledge. Mm-hmm. I obviously want them to think I cared. That's the biggest thing. But I want them to think that, he's there to win. And, I got a quote. I don't know if you guys seen it on my computer, but I think it sums me up pretty good. And it says, "Passion always looks like aggression to the unmotivated." And I feel that way a lot of times. I feel like my passion maybe rubs people the wrong way. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, I want them to know we're here. I'm trying to win. Yeah. I'm not trying to, hurt anybody's feelings or that sort of thing. But, but if you have passion like I do, we're going to get along fine. And for the most part, I've got to work with a lot of good coaches here. Like I mentioned Coach Hale before. Got to play under Coach Tompkins, coached under Coach Tompkins, mm-hmm. Coach D. Haven and I. Mm-hmm. we work together. He's the head baseball coach, and at times I think he would probably tell you he's wanting to smack me right in the head, But at the end of the day, both of us are very passionate about what we're doing, and we want to win, and we want the best out of these kids. And I think looking back on our time together, we've had success with it, and that's been a positive thing. I love Coach DeHaven to death. Yeah, me and him's going to disagree, and people are going to be like, man, they're going to start throwing fisters. No, we're never to that point, but. We're there to win, and we both understand that. So I hope that's how they view me, truth be told.
Do you think that sports can teach a young person the value of hard work and a strong work
I
ethic?
think sports teaches a lot of kids a lot of things that general education doesn't, truth be told. I think competition is by far the greatest thing people can indulge in, for the simple fact that that's life. I look at it from a standpoint that if I'm better than you at something, then I should be the one doing it. And if you're not, or if I'm not as good as you, then I need to figure out a way to get to that level if I want to do that. So, socialization skills, obviously competitiveness, how to deal with frustration, how to deal with success. I mean, I really think it ought to be a law that everyone should have to participate in team competition, just to gain knowledge of life, in my opinion.
They talked about short-term stresses.
Yeah.
How that's always a good thing.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Long-term chronic stress is bad for your health.
Sure.
And it can kill you. But like in sports, the short-term stress is good for you. It teaches you how to deal with pressure.
Right.
How to accomplish certain tasks under pressure. So.
I agree 100%. Like, the whole goal, like when I go out here to practice today, and I hate to even say this, and I hope they don't listen. I hope you get 1,000 views, but I hope none of these guys hear it. But my goal is to make practice so much harder than a game. I think if I can make them have stressful situations through practice, well, the game will be easy.
Right.
And if the game's easy and the flow of that's easy and my ability to think the game is easier, then we should have success.
Yeah.
But, in practice, I'm on them. Like we've had a great start to this season. We've won our first 4 games, and I want those kids thinking we should be 0-4. We've been terrible, and we got to figure out how to fix it. That's my goal. I want them. How do I get better? How do I get better? And I was taught that. I told Coach DeHaven half jokingly at the beginning of the year. I said we should have our undershirts for baseball say nobody cares, work harder. Because that's just the way I look at things. Nobody cares what you did yesterday. It's all gone. We got to figure out how to get better today. And, if we adapt that mindset and people look at it, I think regardless of how you measure success, it'll be a successful year.
We interviewed Coach Greer a few weeks ago, and he said the only easy day was yesterday.
Yeah, he's right, yeah.
I think that's a SEAL quote, too.
Yeah. No, he's a big military guy.
Yeah,
I do
sure.
know that. Yeah. But I agree. I think the past is the past. Accomplishments are great. Don't get me wrong. I think anybody that tells you they don't like trophies and achievements and being acknowledged is crazy. Because why else would you do it, right?
Right.
But I do feel like, from a sports standpoint, it's okay. What did we do today that is going to make us better tomorrow, and what can I do tomorrow that made yesterday obsolete?
Yeah.
Because if I'm not getting better today, somebody is. I hope I don't run into them because that's going to be a problem for me. So, I try my very best to put these kids in situations, and Coach DeHaven as well. He works tirelessly too, and we try to put these kids in situations to where if something goes wrong, you've seen it, and we know what to do, and hopefully it works out in our favor. And obviously, it's not going to do that every time, but going into it prepared and the willingness to try to do that and the willingness to put in the time to it, that's all you can do. And so far, they've done that, so you can't be nothing but pleased so far. But
what's your vision for the baseball program in the next couple of years, maybe 5 years?
Oh, shoot. My vision for the program. Well, I would like to think to sustain what we've done. I think Coach DeHaven and I, have done a pretty decent job of, I don't necessarily want to say bringing it back because Coach Tompkins had success here. Coach DeHaven and I, this is our, I want to say 7th. I always get confused with COVID because we didn't get a year. So it's either our 7th or 8th year together. We won 2 districts. I wholeheartedly believe we would have won a 3rd if COVID hadn't happened. That group of kids we had, they were their work ethic was phenomenal. Hadn't won a region game since 2009. We accomplished that a couple years ago. So, I would like to build off. I'd like to build off of that. You can't. I think anybody that says, well, we're going to win this and win that, I think they're crazy. I don't think you can say you're going to do all that. But I know that with Coach DeHaven in charge, and maybe one day I get the opportunity to do that once he's finished. I feel like we're going to work hard enough that we hope success comes, and if it don't, we're going to figure out a way to work harder to make it come. Because nobody likes a loser in my end. We've worked really hard to be respectful now, and I think we're to that point. I think people, when they see us on the schedule, they're like, oh, okay, we got to prepare for this.
Right.
We got a lot of kids coming back next year, and I think the feeder programs, the middle school and the JV programs are doing well. So I don't see any reason why we shouldn't. You never can't predict the future, but I can guarantee that as long as they let me and him be around, we're going to work at it. And hopefully it'll be shown on game days and at the end of the day.
I can speak for myself. You're an excellent coach. I had you when I was in 8th grade as a JV basketball coach, and we had a good season.
We did have a good
I
season.
think we only lost 2 games.
We'd have won more than that if it hadn't been for COVID.
Yeah, that's true. But if you're anything like you are a basketball coach, I know you're an excellent baseball coach.
I appreciate that. No, I try. That's my thing. I spend. My wife would tell you I spend way too much time because I coached football up until last year here, and for football from a standpoint of that, it gives you you get video, of your opponent, which is terrible because all I do is say, how are we gonna do this? At least with huddle, I have to find baseball, I have to find the information, and the VHSL's made that a little easier on us with everybody having to chart certain things. But, that's kind of my thing. I love trying to figure out the opponent. I like to figure out tendencies. I'm OCD about it, I guess. That's just kind of my thing. And I feel like if I don't do it, I'm letting somebody down. And I don't want to let them down because if I'm going to make those kids work as hard as what I'm trying to explain to you all, I better work as hard as they are to prepare them. That's the way I look at it. And, hopefully we've done that, and hopefully we continue to do that.
Where do you see yourself in 10 years?
10 years? 10 years. Well, if you'd asked me that at 18, I would have told you finishing up my professional career and moving to Malibu or something like that and been done with it. But to be honest with you, I'm hoping if Coach DeHaven is done being the head coach, I would like to fall into that. And within 10 years, if I've been doing it for 10 years, I would say that I've had a great, a good career with it. But my passion has always been sports, and I've enjoyed my, getting to be the educational side of it because, like I told you earlier, if you'd asked me when I was 18 if I'd have been a high school teacher, I'd straight up laughed at you. I'm like, no, I'd be playing somewhere. But, this gave me the avenue to be a coach. I enjoy that aspect very much so. So if in 10 years, if I could be standing on that baseball field and have good health, and I would think I've done okay because that'll put me at 28 years teaching, and that means I ain't got many more to go. And once I get to that retirement, we'll let somebody else deal with it, and I'll critique them from the sidelines, so to speak.
Sure.
So I don't see me going very far in the next 10 years as far as leaving here.
As we're wrapping up, we have a series of questions that we'd like to ask every interviewee, and I'll go first. What advice do you have to someone who's interested in pursuing a career in education or in coaching?
I say chase it.
Chase it.
I would tell them if it's something you're passionate about, don't let anybody tell you can't. I know that sounds kind of cliche, but coming from a individual who has let opportunities go, thinking, well, maybe if I'd done that, it may not work out in the best interest. Hindsight being 20/20. I would tell them to pursue every avenue because at the end of the day, if someone tells you no, who cares? Because there's so many avenues to take.
Sure.
So from a coaching standpoint, be a sponge because all those old guys telling you how this is how it's going to be, listen to them. Don't go into it like you know it all. Lord knows I did that when I was younger and found out I didn't know anything. But, be a sponge, take in anybody that wants to give you any advice, and have questions. If you've got people in your life that or have pursued things that you're looking into, ask, because I don't think there's no such thing as bad advice.
Yeah.
I just think that it's when you don't take it is when it's bad. But so yeah, be a sponge and then chase as hard as you can do it.
Yeah, and that's what we're trying to do here.
Yeah.
We've interviewed all types of professions, and we've been exposed to it all, really.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a unique perspective from our point of view because
Yeah.
growing up, I'm on the edge of,
Yeah, real life, real world, right?
Yeah.
so trying to take as much advice from people as we can.
And
It's been awesome.
Yeah.
Luke's a bit closer to it than I am, but even for me, it's been wildly beneficial.
Oh yeah, I think if you've got something, if you're set on something in life, chase it with everything you got. Because when you get to my age, I don't want to say I'm old, but I am in my 40s. I don't think you want to look back and say, well, man, I wish I'd have done this, or I wish I'd have done that. I think you got to chase it, and if it don't work out, who cares? Because you're going to end up where you're supposed to end up anyway.
Yeah.
So,
who's your best friend?
That's a good question. My best friend. Up until my dad, I would say my dad, until he passed away, because he was I would like to say I'm a lot like him, hard-headed, stubborn, but he also knew when to tell me, you're being an idiot. Stop doing that, or why are you doing this, or I think you need to do that. Whether I want to hear or not, he's always honest with me, and I could respect that. So I would say my dad. Nowadays, I throw a lot of things off my wife. I throw a lot of things off my mom. They're big parts of my life. So I'd say them too. But when my dad passed away, he was probably my best friend.
Can you talk on the importance of family?
Oh, absolutely. I had a great one. I've had a great family. When I was younger growing up, it was nothing to have all of us at my grandparents every Sunday, and sometimes we go to both grandparents, just lunch and dinner. I've had a very supportive family. My mom and my dad, I don't know, I could probably count on one hand how many games they've missed, even playing and coaching. Yeah. I'm like, Mom, why you even come? I'm standing at the base, why? But she just wants to be there, So yeah, they've been integral, very instrumental in what I've done. Not really told a lot of people this, but I'll tell you guys this. So that whole Hall of Fame thing at Emory, I got a ring from that, and it's a really nice ring. And I wear it very seldom, but I enjoy wearing it when I can. But on the inside of that ring, I've got an inscription that says "Play hard and win big." And the reason I've had that, literally every game I've ever played, from the time I can remember in middle school until I finished at 23 years old in college, back then my mother would tell me in high school, before I'd walk out the door, play hard, win big. When I was in college, I'd get a text, when they were still 10 cents a text. I don't know if you guys remember that at one time. But it used to, you had to pay 10 cents per text. Wow. But I got one every single time we played. Play hard, win big. And that's just something she's always been there. And my wife, she's a sports fanatic. Landon, he jumped into it growing up. So, I don't remember many accomplishments or disappointments that I've had playing sports or coaching sports that they weren't right there. So, it's been a huge blessing. I wish everybody had it. I know they probably don't, but, they've been very, very instrumental in me doing what I'm doing.
Absolutely. And that kind of leads into my next question. What is your advice to young people just making their way in the world? I would like to go back to the whole find a passion and chase it with everything you've got. Try to make good decisions, because good decisions now will benefit you later. Try to find as many people as you can to network with. What else would I tell them? That sometimes the right decision now may not be necessarily what you want to do, but it may be the best thing for you. Yeah. But, at the end of the day, I think people, like I said, I'm a big chase what you are passionate about individual, and run with it. Try to gain as much knowledge as you can about what it is that makes you happy, and figure out a way to make money at it, And if you can do that and look back on it when you're my age or when you retire, and you can say, well, man, I done what I could, and you can leave it like that, then I think that's the key to having a good, to me, that's a good life. If I can look back on this 20 years from now and say, well, I gave everything I had and it worked out, then I'm satisfied with that,
And our last question is a bit of a cliche,
Okay.
but we ask every interviewee it, and we find it to be very indicative of a person's character, and that is, what is the meaning of life to you?
What is the meaning of life to me? I think when I'm dead and gone, when it's all said and done for me, I want the people that knew me to look back on me and just think I was a good human. I would like for, the kids I've coached, well, he may be passionate, he may have been on my case, but I know he cared, and we was out here for the same reason. I just, I feel like from my standpoint, I'm going to be remembered as a coach/teacher, which is great. I mean, that's a noble profession. But I want people to think that I had their best interest at heart. May not have came across that way all the time, but at the end of the day, just that he was a good guy.
Yeah.
Mr. Burcham, it's been an honor to speak with you.
Well, I appreciate you guys.
Thank you. Means a
I
lot to
enjoyed
us.
this. Yeah.
Thank you.